Hey guys, welcome to my first ever book review. So, after 8 months, I finally finished Heretics of Dune. It didn't take a long time because of the book, but life in general. I try not to get into spoilers of the previous books. They are pretty good, and I want whoever reads them to form their own opinions, not just echo what I think. And this is the fifth book in the series, and a lot of people don't get to this point. Most of them fall off, but I have to get into spoilers for this book. So this is one of the slowest slow burn books I've ever read, and most of the Dune books are already slow burns for me. It has severe pacing issues and 4D chess going on for the third of the book, which is very frustrating and it's a lot to process. The first three books were meant to be a trilogy, with the previous book supposed to be an intermediate or like a standalone book, God Emperor of Dune. Heretics of Dune was supposed to kick off a new trilogy, but sadly the author passed away before he could finish it. So in this book we get a new environment, new characters, new societies, a time jump from the first four books. But unlike the previous books, which was focused on their treaties and Arrakis, this one is focused on the Bene Gesserit, with focus on Arrakis and Saw Gedi Prime and Chapter House, temporary home planet of the Bene Gesserit. We have Atreides characters, but they're either Bene Gesserit too, or they were trained by the Bene Gesserit, so it's all Bene Gesserit. So since they're all Bene Gesserit, every time they're the subject or the focus of the chapter, or they're like talking to another character, looking at another character, there'll always be like 2 to 3 paragraphs about what they're thinking, how they should react, what they're reacting, whoever they're talking to, what these guys interpreted from that reaction, and what should happen next, and all that, which is interesting at first because it's been a long time since we focused on the Bene Gesserit, but it gets frustrating when the book is over 500 pages. Next is the pacing. In previous books, there would be a focus on a character for 2 to 3 chapters continuously, but then it will switch to another character. But because there is a need to, that character would be doing something interesting, or it would affect the plot in general. But in this book, there are around 3 to 4 main stories going on, and every chapter you switch between these stories. Every single chapter. There's no 2 chapters that happens with the same story or the same planet even. For example, someone will be summoning a worm to ride, or like riding a worm, or they're finding details about previous characters, and then the next chapter it switches to a character who's so tired and they're explaining how tired they are and how they haven't slept. It's really boring and it breaks the pacing altogether. Finally, the plot of the book and how it fits into the rest of the books and the Dune universe. We are told that in the previous book, and this is spoilers, the tyrant, who's prescient, sees a girl who can command worms in the future, and that person finally comes into existence in this book, and the Bene Gesserit plan to breed her with another Duncan Idaho Gola. By the way, in every book, I think this is the 5th Duncan Idaho overall, and the 4th Duncan Idaho Gola. So they plan to breed these two so they can command the generations afterwards to whatever their plans are. But the book is so slow to getting to that, and the execution is rushed. It happens in like a very short chapter, I think the 2nd or 3rd to last chapter. And then at the last chapter we find out that wasn't the plan at all. It's explained after the execution of the plan that's not the plan, it was another plan all along. Then there's like side quests. That's the best way I can explain it. We find out about other stuff, like the Tulaxu breeding this Gola different, like they've hidden something in him. The Bene Gesserit finding out about axolotl tanks. and new face dancers that can copy the person and their memories to the point that they forget that they're face dancers themselves and they actually become the person. And my biggest disappointment, this Duncan Idaho was awakened a second time when he was, let's say, countering someone, and he got all the memories of the previous Duncan Idahos, which is like over 5,000 years at this point. And I thought we're finally going to get all the missing Duncan Idaho stories about how they lived, how they died, and nothing happens. They don't take it anywhere. Maybe in the next book, I'm not sure, but that was the biggest disappointment. And I was getting fed up of Duncan Idaho goers in general, because every book it's used as a vessel for the reader. We're supposed to connect with him because he's new to the world just like us. But it's been happening for 2 books now. So that's all the negatives I have. For the positives, I like that there are new threats besides what we have seen, like the Bene Gesserit and the Tlaxu. We get an in-depth look with the Bene Tlax, because previously we've seen them, we heard about them, and then we got to see a face dancer, but this time we're get in-depth time with a master, and we also get new societies and factions. But every time they're introduced, that new faction, by the end of the chapter, all of them are killed and replaced, or all of them are just killed, which makes them seem very weak. Next, this book has some solid characters such as Miles Tegg, who's a Bashar, a Mentat in Atreides, who looks like the Duke Leto the First, and he had a Bene Gesserit mother who trained him in those ways. Next is Waf, who is the Bene Tlax master that I mentioned. And the biggest positive and the biggest new character is Shiana, or Shiena, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, who's just a normal kid in the Dune universe. She doesn't have Bene Gesserit training, she doesn't have Mentat training, combat training. Every kid we've seen in the Dune universe doesn't behave like a kid, they're more mature than real life adults. But this kid is just curious, playful, observant, and doesn't have plans within plans. That makes it more convincing that the Dune universe is just set in the future. All the previous kids we've seen, such as Paul, had Mentat and combat training. Aaliyah, Ganima, and Leto II were abominations who had memories of their past ancestry. And the Gola in this book, who's also pretty young, I think we meet him at around 7 or 10. He also behaves like a kid sometimes, but mostly he's just looking for answers. He's just on a quest for knowledge. So, rating the Dune universe overall, my lowest would be this book because it was very slow. It was very hard to finish. After that, I would put Dune Messiah, even though it's the shortest book in the series. That had, after a phenomenal execution of a book like Dune Messiah was just disappointing. Didn't have much going on. Well, it's my opinion. After that, I'll put Children of Dune, same issue, but Leto II was much more interesting. After that, I'll put the original Dune, and this is my opinion, because the first half of Dune, I didn't find that interesting. It was more world building, character building, than any action. And the number 1 spot goes to God Emperor of Dune because of its weirdness. I was just astonished reading it the entire time. And I like to end this video by saying I'm an idiot. I don't have the IQ to understand all the subtle messages and meanings behind all these Dune books, and these are my opinions. It may change for you. My opinions may change in the future for myself, but do not take my word. Go out and get this book and let me know what you thought. Thank you.